It's time for the Bookie and the Bettor Show. If you're a sports fan, now it's time to play the odds and make every bet count. New episodes post every Thursday on your favorite streaming service. Now introducing Rob Kowalski, the Bookie, and Randy Wike, the Bettor.
Welcome back to another episode of the Bookie and Bettor Show. I'm your host, Robert Kowalski, joined once again, friend, colleague, Randy Wike.
Hey, Rob.
Randy, timing is everything, and boy, do we have quite a topic to discuss today from, well, not only a betting perspective, but just a true heartbeat perspective. But before we get to what news has come across, again, thank you so much for joining us. Whether you're listening to us on a podcast, wherever you may get your podcast, or right here on YouTube. If you like what you see, you like what you hear, don't forget to like and or subscribe. We always appreciate you guys coming on back and asking us questions. Keep those questions coming in the comments below the episodes. And we'll be sure to get to them at the top or at the middle or somewhere in the episode. So one thing that was mentioned to me on social media was what happened yesterday. Randy, we took a look at the menu, and I'm promising we're going to get to the Eastern and Western Conference finals in the NBA. I want to get your opinions on where we're at right now, post Denver Nuggets. But there are plenty more great things to talk about there from a betting perspective. But Randy, this one's big. This is landmark. The NCAA and its leagues are moving forward with a multi-billion-dollar agreement to settle 3 pending federal antitrust cases. NCAA is going to pay more than $2.7 billion in damages over 10 years to past and current athletes. Sources said that the parties have also agreed to a revenue sharing plan. Okay, let that sink in for a moment. Allowing each school to share up to roughly $20 million with its student athletes.
And these schools are going to go back in time to award athletes, or is this for future endeavors?
Yes, great question. So it's a roadmap, right? And there's a ton of legalese here. This is not going to be that show, I promise you, because I don't know any of this. Here's what I do know. Amateurism is officially dead. When we were talking about this just a few years ago, when we were doing live radio at Baldini's, we were talking about name, image, and likeness and what that was going to do, how it was going to affect recruiting. Forget about all that now. Forget about it. Because now there's straight up plans in place to revenue share with NCAA student athletes. About $20 million, and that's currently the number that's being set for next season. What more can I see?
You're saying $20 million for each school?
Each school. There you go.
Of FBS.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead. I already know what's coming, so serve it up first.
Here's the thing. You got the governing body of collegiate sports that, number one, is able to afford billions and billions of dollars to now come back, and whether you call it name, image, and likeness, they're paying athletes because they didn't get a share of the crop back when they played. That's number one.
Yep.
Is that right or wrong?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It literally doesn't matter anymore.
So number two, what are you setting from this point forward? Mm-hmm. So now, are we going to be in a negotiating war every third year to say they want to escalate the fee? Because that's what's happening in real life.
Yes.
A college player last year that was getting $40,000 transfers to another school to get $100,000.
Yes.
So that's what's going to happen here.
Correct.
Is that right for college sports?
Doesn't matter.
I get it. But so college sports is professional sports now.
Yes, it is.
So, last week we talked about the NFL presented by Taylor Swift. And now this week we talk about collegiate athletes from years gone by and future years where they're all going to get paid.
Yeah, any athlete. And so here's the beautiful question. Let's just take, and I have no idea, I can't even name you one player on the 2019 Oregon Ducks football team, but let's just take a look at that whole roster, and somehow they need to figure out how you're going to pay back funds in this settlement. So by the way, another thing is, so with this going forward, Power 5 has agreed to all of this. the players will agree to drop any future litigation. So this is all done. It's finished here.
Here's my whole problem. And it goes back to what, I've harped on since the beginning of this year, even when Lenny was here, Coach Stevens. We talked about this. So now, you and I are both recruits.
Yes.
Okay? Now go back previous years. You and I both came in to the University of Nebraska at the same time.
Perfect.
You, as a freshman, are guaranteed $150,000.
Sure.
I'm a freshman. I had a fantastic high school career. Mm-hmm. I'm getting $50,000.
Okay.
How are you going to go back? Because I'm not happy with the current scenario. We're both teammates. You don't think there's going to be animosity? We're both incoming freshmen, and I'm going to say to myself, I'm just as good as you are. I'm going to say publicly, I'm just as good as Rob is.
Yes.
Now you're going back in years. Now you're going to award on what?
That was me raising my hands in the air for all of you listening on podcast.
But it doesn't make sense. You don't go back. You go forward. And unfortunately, it's reality. Hey, those kids were out of time. They didn't get paid. But now you're saying you have to go back to 2019.
Officially 20. So here's the note that I took out of this in terms of reparations back to players that have already graduated. So any athlete that played in a Division I sport, forget about men's football. I'm talking about
baseball.
Baseball. How about women's softball?
1978.
You're out.
I don't get money.
No, you're out. 2016. You didn't let me finish the sentence. 2016, through the present day, has a claim to some of the roughly $2.7 billion in settlement money. This is settlement money. So,
of course it is.
The plaintiff's attorney will also receive a significant portion of the money. The damages represent money athletes might have made through NIL deals if the NCAA rules had not restricted them in the past.
And again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not saying I'm not for the collegiate athlete making money. I'm not saying that. But back in our day, again, a $400,000 scholarship I thought was getting paid. Okay? It's money you're not forwarding out, but how do you make it equal? I don't believe the NCAA with their committees have thought everything through. What's right for college sports is not what's right for the NFL. Granted, but now they're professional players.
They are professional players.
So again, if you're basing it on merit, then we should have a contract to say, I'm recruiting you and I'm signing you to a $1.3 million deal.
Pretty much.
Okay, do it publicly.
But it's correct, right? So it's going to be, and not only that, but you still have your NIL.
Yeah.
Right. So you touched on something 2 minutes ago, and I'm going to bring it back because it's really good. Scholarships. What's the use? Right? So scholarships and roster limits for that matter, right? Let's cover this for a moment. So in the sprint to settle, obviously, there's a bevy of details that are going to be left for college sports leaders to work out in the coming months. The inclusion of roster caps could impact college sports on the field. Right now, college sports operates with scholarship limits. For example, Division I football is limited to 85 scholarships, baseball to 11.7. I don't know how that figure works out. And softball 12. Meanwhile, Division I football rosters run to nearly 140 players on the high end, while baseball rosters top out around 40. Softball averages around 25. What happens with scholarships?
Well, and again, equality. Does the men division get more
Bring it back.
money?
There we go. Title IX. What are we doing with Title IX?
Yes.
Now I'm going to pull it all the way back. What are we doing with the Mountain West?
Well, and I know this is a subject for another. Mountain West is going away. You're going to have, and I'm saying this right now, you're going to have 7 or 8 conferences in college sports. You're going to have 20 teams. You're going to have 3 divisions or 4 divisions, and then they'll have a playoff in their situation at the end of the year for the conference champion. That's what's going to happen.
I think you're too high. I think 7 or 8 conferences even that's too much. And I think you might be even half that.
And very well could be. So, again, in the case of Nevada, which is another subject, go back to the FCS level where there's fun in college sports than the other player.
You're telling me fun.
But
fun. What if I say, hey, I want to play here. I want to play at home, but I ain't playing for fun.
Well, nobody's playing for fun now.
Oh, exactly. So even at the FCS level, they're not playing for fun.
I cry silver and blue for the University of Nevada. I cry it. I respect this community. I love this community. I love that university. Now that's gone away because an athlete can dictate at any time what he or she wants to do.
That's right.
So I thought college sports was far superior to professional sports for the excitement level and the fact that you want to win for your school.
Still could be. It's just not amateur anymore. That's all.
If an athlete, and that's a very good point you just made, but here's my point to that, counterpoint to that.
Sure.
If an athlete stays 1 year and transfers, what commitment does he have to the university? None. He could care less.
Correct.
Now kids don't even want to play in a bowl game. They say, I'm sitting out for the bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
So college sports that used to be so great that I put up at the top of Mount Rushmore, they have not, and I say they, the NCAA,
sure,
has not thought these things all the way through. They didn't think about the transfer portal when they come out and said a kid can only transfer once during his college career.
Right.
Now they're transferring 4 and 5 times. I don't know that this is what it was intended to be. And again, I'm for an athlete getting paid because let's face it, 24/7 they're into their sport mind. It's tough to even do school. But at the same time, they've got to have equality for the players, let alone the sports, women and men. But I'm at the same level as you, and how come he gets more? We didn't think this thing through. And then you come on with some bylaws and some guidelines. Kids can't transfer. They allow kids to transfer multiple times.
Right.
And I agree. This all started because coaches make so much money that they felt the players should make it. You got Ann Arbor, Michigan, where you got 108,000 fans at a game.
Yes.
Why aren't the players getting paid?
Correct.
I don't disagree with that, but there needs to be some guidelines and some perimeters set. What's fair for one is fair for all. Because, again, we are talking about kids here. We're talking about kids.
They're young adults, correct? Yes, they are.
So put in perspective, and I say you, the NCAA, get something together or get rid of the NCAA because now you don't need them. In the professional sports, we don't need them.
You still need a governing body of some kind.
What? Because so they can divvy out the money, right? Is that what they're doing?
So they're an escrow holding company then?
Yeah. But I think, and I know NCAA meets here few weeks, right? To go over some of these bylaws.
They're going to have to.
And I know, again, NIL and transfer portals on that agenda. Now, we've already said the COVID year is over. So kids, 27-year-old kids aren't going to be playing college sports.
Correct.
So I just say, think this thing through. Here we are, and you just said it, 24 hours, we've made the biggest decision in college sports history. And who got involved in this? The committee decided this?
Well, the courts,
am I wrong?
Randy.
Isn't it we, the country? Doesn't the country get a decision in this? Because you as let's face it, okay, who were you, a Rutgers fan? Who were you?
Oh, St. John's.
Okay, St. John's. As a St. John's fan, your ticket prices just increased again.
That's right.
So now the average fan can't afford to go to a game.
No.
Because we're going to pay players from 25 years ago.
That's okay. I could watch him on TV. Rick Pitino does no wrong.
I'm telling you that is wrong. And again, it's we the country. We the country.
Okay. So one last thing, because you mentioned the transfer portal, you mentioned NIL, but you didn't mention one other thing. This brand new thing may be dead before it even gets started. Collectives. So we have to discuss so Randy, in your mind, do you recall what the collectives can now do? Before we talked about what's happening right now.
There wasn't much to the collectives because everything was based on the whole picture. So you're telling me it's going to be individual things now.
Exactly. Right. So these collectives that were put together, money spent, studies made, gone. It's finished.
And who's seen that?
Okay. Yeah.
Did
I don't know.
the people get to look at that?
No.
Isn't that public domain?
Yeah. Well, of course it is supposed to be.
We made a governing decision that affects college athletes, and I can't even give you the number, in one night, overnight, 24 hours. I hadn't heard anything about this. And we've made a decision that we're going to award billions of dollars. And again, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the athletes in the past didn't deserve it just like the athletes today. That's not what I'm saying. But there's no bylaws or procedures to say this is what should be divvied out in paper, on paper, and so that public domain can see it.
That's right.
Because, again, everybody says, well, you guys are not the governing factor. The NCAA is. We most certainly are the governing factor because we pay the ticket prices to attend these games.
So, okay, no, and okay, I see your angle, but I'm going to go on the other side because I'm not sure you're mentioning this one. How about the Livy Dunns of the world from LSU? How about even the most recent?
Is she married? Because I want to marry her. I know she's with Paul Skeens.
Yes, that's right.
But she's making a lot of money too.
She probably has more followers on social media than most pro athletes do.
So if you want to adopt me when you guys get married, Randy Wike, I'm available.
Okay, so let's skip that thought.
Okay.
How about Caitlin Clark? How much is she supposed to get?
Well, now does her deal increase from her current collegiate to now she's making a little less?
She's playing tonight. She's playing tonight for the Indiana Fever.
She's got a lot of endorsements.
So her NCAA career is finished.
Okay.
But
now
we have to go back. Yes.
Yeah.
How much is she supposed to get?
Now, is that right? Is that fair?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Because now, especially if they said you're going to go back to 2016, and I don't know, maybe they're going to do it with a what have you done for me lately mentality. But yeah, sure. What have you done for me lately? Caitlin Clark, you might say, completely put collegiate women's basketball way up into the stratosphere.
And again, I always like the line, play the game.
Okay.
Play the game is out.
Play the game. Just pay me now.
But here's the story where I was going, or the angle I was going. The greatest probably collegiate football coach, Nick Saban.
Okay.
You're not a coach now doing X's and O's. That's gone because of all this stuff. Now I got to make sure that I'm within the guidelines to pay Joe or John or Sally.
No, you could hire someone to do that.
So, but that's an angle. Because now as a head coach, I'm worried about Rob, who's I think a great freshman, is going to have a great year. I may not have him next year.
You're missing the biggest picture. No. You know what? You are missing the biggest picture because you went to Nick Saban. No, I'm going to make you Randy Wike. Here's this exercise. You, Randy Wike, you're the athletic director of the University of Alabama. Okay? And I just brought in the next crop of really, really great collegiate softball players. How much are those girls going to get paid?
Well, and here's what I'm doing. I'm going to become the Billy Bean or the guys with the computer now. Because now you got to have a computer to see what a kid's worth.
I love it.
And then put it out and then send it to everybody.
Yes,
that's
everybody.
Where we're going.
Yes, we are. And I love it. I love all of it.
X's and O's.
But
defense wins championships.
But pay me first.
And again, I'll end it there. I just think before we come out and say this is what we're doing, think everything through and get more people involved in the decision making.
That was fun. I knew this was going to be a good episode.
Yeah.
Randy, take a look at this menu here with me as we go to the second half of our show here. Obviously, deep into the playoffs. We're both into the Eastern Conference and Western Conference finals for the NBA and in the Stanley Cup for the NHL. Baseball's pretty deep into its baseball season at this point. We already see our haves and have-nots, and we know who's going to be in running for a wild card spot, and teams that simply are not, no matter what their record says.
We are on pace for the first half of the season in the modern era to have more blown leads after the fifth inning than any other year in Major League Baseball.
Happened just yesterday with the aforementioned Paul Skeens. He was leading, got pulled, and they lost the game.
Well, and then how about the Rockies? Up 9-5 against the A's.
That was a fun one.
10-9. How about the Padres down, 5-1? Come back and win 6-5. Just in the last 3 days. Major League Baseball, and there's no question, I think it's going to be exciting this year. Starters are great.
Yes, they are.
You look at the kid from the Cubs, the Asian kid.
Imanaga. He's pitching tonight, actually.
Very good. Where is the middle relief and the closers? We're paying closers. You talk about maybe he should get some of these closers should get NIL money. We're paying them millions of dollars and they can't hold a lead.
From a betting perspective, clearly, if all of this holds true into June and July, I mean, obviously, betting at Baldini's the first 5 innings or anywhere that you're betting makes an awful lot of sense because now you can actually handicap something that seems to be either A, far more likelier to happen in terms of just the metrics, or B, well, if you like blown saves and you know that these are more prone to happen depending on, whether the team's on the road or at home, handicap it all in. Obviously, some of these totals that we set early in the morning, and this is no secret, obviously the early bird gets the worm. Sometimes these totals that are set in the morning just might be too low. And lately I have found that there are teams that are clearly playing, over 8.5s, 9s very easily, and some that simply can't scratch out enough runs to win it all.
And more than ever, Rob, this year, look at trends from a current win-loss perspective. You've lost 5, 6 in a row. And again, more often than not, and I am really serious about this, look at the teams, especially West Coast teams that were on let's say a 9 to 12 game homestand, now have to go back east. Look at the odds of what they've done on that first game on the Eastern Tour stop. They're not very good. So when you start looking at pitchers, again, for that first 5 innings, and trends, because it's holding true to about 71%. If you look at some of these trends where the team's been on a losing streak for 5 or 6 games, definitely take them. If they're 7 to 10, stay with the fact that they're going to lose. Also, look at the East Coast, West Coast. And again, it's more from the West Coast teams going to the East Coast this year more than any other time in Major League Baseball. So far, exactly. And obviously, there's still plenty of baseball to go. But at this point, with about 2 months' worth of play already in the books, kind of have an idea for a baseline performance of these teams. Only thing really on the lookout for is injuries to the middle of the lineup, and or otherwise. So keep your eyes on that. Obviously, another thing to keep your eye on is what we actually wanted to take a look at today. Randy, Eastern Conference, Western Conference, NBA. Right now, Celtics up 2-0. We're offering up the Celtics as a 7-point favorite Saturday in Indiana. Total set to 222.5 right now. Questionable whether or not Tyrese Halliburton's going to play there. Turn out the lights, the party's over.
In what way? A clean sweep?
I think it could be a clean sweep. When we talked 4 weeks ago, I still thought the Eastern Conference was a little weaker, top to bottom for the playoff teams than the Western Conference. Now watching Boston, and again, keep in mind, game 1 of this series with Indiana, I mean, you live and die with the 3 if you're the Boston Celtics. That's just the way it's been lately. This team is tough, and I think that I even put them aside. You get Tatum and you get these guys, Brown going now.
Jaylen Brown's could be the MVP of the Eastern Conference Final.
They're going to be, obviously, I think they're going to win 4 straight against Indiana. Going back home, we'll have to see. But if you watch game 2 to game 1, they gave everything they had. And it showed in game 2. They weren't the same team. So now with that extra day, now travel, coming back home, what will happen? I think it's tough. So right now I have Boston, who I didn't have here 3 weeks ago, winning it all.
On the west side, the Dallas Mavericks up 1-0 after their first game 1 win in Minnesota. Timberwolves come back 5.5 points. Actually, there's even a 6 out there right now. The total 207.5. Randy, play this one out. This one's probably a lot more difficult than the Boston series.
I'm going to do one thing. If you can find a prop on Anthony Edwards, who played horrible the other night, Anthony Edwards is going to have the game of his career. Mark my words. This next game will have the game of his career.
The other things that I'm looking at in terms of injuries, Doncic did have a minor tweak to his knee. He's currently listed as probable, probably going to play if there's anything that I know about the way this game is played.
Correct.
But this one's as clear as a fiddle right now. No real other connotations otherwise for injuries. Randy, play this one out. Dallas up 1-0. Minnesota lost their home court advantage. Who wins the West?
Well, the story of the Dallas Mavericks in the 2024 playoffs has been Kyrie Irving. In my opinion, has been the superior player in the playoffs so far.
Who played incredible.
Yeah.
Right.
Can he continue at that level? That, let alone the mental approach for Kyrie, because I don't know the man, but he has his good nights and he has his really bad nights, and I'm sure they all do, obviously. But I think the key is, can you rely on him, especially if Dante's hurt a little bit? Can they expect him to carry the basically the flashlight?
Right.
Because that's what you're going to need. I don't think he can, and I think Minnesota still comes back and prevails.
So on that series price, obviously, if you're looking for a price right there, team down 1. They did have home court. Obviously, you could take it back with a win in Dallas. Right now, you could catch $125 for every dollar that you bet on the Minnesota Timberwolves to win the series and make their way to the NBA Finals.
Is there a prop on Anthony Edwards?
No, of course, there's a prop on everything.
I'm telling you, if I could get big money from my wife, honey, if you're listening to this, give me big money. Anthony Edwards will go off. Mark my words.
There's no such prop called Anthony Edwards will go off.
Well,
let's go. How about a little bit more specific?
Anthony Edwards,
Western Conference,
double, 25-15 next game.
Okay, that's definitely within reason. We can go ahead and mark that down. Listeners at home, you hear what Randy really likes for game number 2 of Minnesota and Dallas. There's so much more, obviously, what we have to offer than just these sports here that we've been talking about. Of course, this the NBA and the NHL playoffs, baseball, of course. Soccer, obviously, many of the top tier leagues are coming to the end of their season. FA Cup, Manchester United, Manchester City, we're booking that, of course. That's going very early tomorrow morning.
And then I hear big news in pro golf this week that the PGA, we're back to money, name, image, and likeness money. They're getting ready to make a big presentation proposal, obviously, to compete with LIV. And I'm not going to name any players, but I understand some big money, again, to some of these PGA players that may be waffling a little bit as to what they want to do. So I don't have the details yet, but I do understand that's in the near.
Well, for me, just get on a course and play every week. That's all I care about.
And if you guys could give me a couple of lessons, I only need 2.
Those are available for a cost. Everything for a cost.
Of course, here we go, a cost. Name, image, and likeness.
And, of course, coming up on Sunday, without a doubt, as we know, one of the majors, this one, of course, in Roland Garros in Paris on the clay, the French Open, which will be offering all the way throughout. It looks like Alexander Zverev, for you closely following, he actually drew Rafael Nadal in the opening round, which is absolutely hysterical. Of course, Nadal is one of the all-time greats, but he's been injured. He's actually hasn't even been playing. But he is going to play in his opening round. Is one of the favorites.
Rob, don't forget the big thing coming up. We're going to have to start talking about Mike Tyson and Jake Paul here. We're getting close.
Oh, well, of course, Combat Sports is going to be there. July 20th is the date of this pro bout, as far as what the Texas Gaming Commission has called this one. And, of course, a whole lot more. Not only that, we're going to have all sorts of combat sports to talk about, but that one's going to definitely be circled on the horizon. Well before then, of course, actually right around that time is going to be the Summer Olympics, so we'll be talking about that from an international perspective, international basketball, international soccer. All of these were going to be offered, and can't wait to actually take a look and see who are going to be the favorites there. What an episode, Randy.
NCAA, get people involved. Get people involved in your decision-making, please.
Too late, Randy.
Too late.
Cat's out of the bag.
It's kind of like my wife and giving her money.
Thanks so much for joining us, everybody, once again, for the Bookie and Bettor Show. I'm your host, Robert Kowalski, for Randy Wike. Thanks so much. See you again next time.
Thank you for listening to the Bookie and the Bettor Show. New episodes post every Thursday on your favorite streaming service.